Hello, and welcome to our lecture today on historical analysis. So, in historical methods, right, as I explained in the first intro, well, that sounds redundant, in the first video, the goal of historical methods is not to delve into the content of any particular topic or subject, right? Most of you are working with me in early modern Europe, where we're talking about the time period, what's going on, or you're working with Dr. Patterson and Jim Crow South, looking at that area, right? But historical methods, it's not what we do here. What we do here is to really look at how you understand the discipline, how you understand methods that different historians used, how you unpack meaning, how you apply similar types of analytical tools to your own work. So, we are going to begin with just a general understanding of what is historical analysis. I like to think of historical analysis as breaking things down, right? Understanding not only definitions, but being able to place events within context, being able to really look at things from multiple points of view, applying what we would call different lenses. So we know that if you look at an event from different perspectives, you are going to get different interpretations. Um, so the goal of the historian really is to look at what has been written and try to understand it, but also how these perspectives have really changed over time. And then what that reveals about the event now. One of the things that can be very difficult to understand in terms of what historians actually do is that there's not one historical truth, right? Students come into the discipline of history from high school seeing one historical truth. And it's often written as if this is all very inevitable rather than humans making choices that have causes and effect, rather than looking at the unintended consequences of specific actions by actors who have their own agendas. Um, so once you're now at the college level, most of you upper graduates, BA, a graduate, soon to be graduates in the department, right? You have to get beyond the textbook understanding of events and start to see things in a much more complex understanding. So, with that, it is now, I'm sorry, my son is screaming. It is now imperative to start really looking at scholarly works, peer reviewed sources. So if you don't go to textbooks for information, and you certainly don't go to Wikipedia or online encyclopedias of any kind, where do you go? Well, for credible information, you go to scholars. And this typically, right, means that the information is either published by a university press or is published in a manner that's called peer reviewed process, meaning other scholars look at it, read it, and discuss whether your sources and argument are credible. From my own experience, right, I've written things, it's been sent off. I don't know who these reviewers are. They are scholars at different universities. Sometimes they let me know, sometimes they don't, um, who give me feedback on my work and saying, I agree with this, this is, I don't know about that, right? So that's how the process goes. So the idea is you should not be able to get something published by a university press or a major journal if it's, filled with QAnon theories because they have no basis. So when you are evaluating secondary sources, right, the first thing you ask yourself is it credible? How do I know? Is it peer reviewed? Is it published from a university? Is it published from a journal that requires evidence and sources and footnotes? Does it explain its perspective? A good scholar will tell you exactly what their perspective is, right? Being very upfront about often their own biases. So these are some of the things to begin to ask yourself as you are looking at scholarly sources and really understanding for your project that you are self-selecting what types of materials. And you want a collection of both books and journal articles, and you want the most recent perspectives that you can find. I don't really know. I don't really need to know what someone thought about your topic in 1960. I imagine, regardless of what the topic is, ideas have changed. So typically, again, you want to use the most recent publications that you can find, unless you're really working on something about interpretation and change over time about the topic itself. Okay, so how do you begin to unpack a journal article, right? Well, one of the things, again, is to think, compare and contrast it, right? You are never going to understand one event by reading one article. You've got to read multiple articles. You have to read multiple books so you can compare and contrast, right? Arguments, data sets, and interpretation. You have to have that exposure to multiple perspectives. So, this is why if you're preparing for graduate school, you're going to read 15 different books about one topic, right? And that's not to overwhelm one, but rather to see these are the vastly different ways people have approached this topic so you can be better informed. You have to be able to analyze all of those historical C's that I've been talking about, in our face-to-face classes over the year: context, change over time, continuity, cause and effect, consequences. Um, and most notably, I would say, hold interpretations as tentative, right? Ideas can change, new data emerges, how we think about things change. So the goal is not to write a definitive truth that's never going to change, but rather say this is sort of where this discipline interpretation is now. So with that being said, I want to take you to your reading for this week and just spend a little bit of time talking about it. All right. So the article you're going to read this week is by Ruth Feldstein, and it is called "I Wanted the Whole World to See." It's race, class, and gender constructions of motherhood in the death of Emmett Till. And there's a PDF right here. Now, this is one of the most impactful articles I read as a graduate student. And it's from a collection of essays in a book on post-war American gender. And the reason I want you to read it, well, there's so many reasons. It's good, first and foremost, but it takes a event that many of us believe that we know a lot about and have heard a lot about over time, which is the murder of Emmett Till. And it really unpacks it and looks at it from a different perspective. And what I mean by this is it really looks at how the trial effectively puts Black motherhood on trial and how the defense really tries Black motherhood. And it is an incredibly interesting article that brings together, again, lots of different threads. And again, it shows us the power of applying perhaps a different lens to a topic. What happens when we look at this event from a gendered perspective, right? What happens when we look at the sort of gendered complexities of an event? So, this week I want you to read this article and begin to unpack it, right? I want you to identify the author's thesis, her evidence, and her approach, and then explain it. What evidence does she use? Do you explore the way that Felstein approaches the topic. Again, I just sort of told you this is very much from a gendered lens, um, and sort of the complexity, right, of race, gender, and class. I want you to tell me what you think the strengths of the article are, and also point out the weaknesses, right? Often students are hesitant to criticize articles even if they like them. I know I fell into that category, but you can, right? That's part of what you are asked to do. When I write book reviews that are published, I can't just say it was great. I do try to offer some sort of critical analysis. Other, what's the point, right? I'm no sycophant. I need to offer something concrete, and you should do the same for your peers. You should, offering criticism is not bad. It is how we get better. It is how we improve over time. It can be hard to hear. I'm the first one to admit. Um, and then tell me what your analysis of the article is. So 250 words in length. I will be commenting throughout the week, asking questions. If you have questions about the article, you can also add that within your discussion. But again, the idea is really for you all to begin to unpack analysis, right? And apply it to this really, really interesting article. All right, let me know if you have any questions this week. I am here to help.